All right, so you guys wanted to explore something a little different this time, and I think we found it.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at a document that lays out a ritual
Okay.
that is meant to harness the power of the earth.
Interesting.
Specifically, this document is coming from the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn.
Okay.
Now, before anyone gets any ideas,
Right.
this is not about joining a secret society.
Yeah.
But it is about understanding how this group used symbolism and very specific actions to connect with nature's energy.
I think that's a really interesting angle because we so often associate these mystical orders with like otherworldly experiences, you know?
Right.
Here they're using a very structured approach
Yeah.
to connect with something very grounded
Right.
element of Earth.
Yeah, and it's specifically designed for someone at a particular level within the order.
Oh.
It's mentioned someone in the outer order at the Zealot grade.
Okay.
So it definitely suggests some sort of like hierarchy.
Yeah, like levels to this whole mystical journey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, like where do you go from there?
Right, exactly. But for now,
Yeah.
let's stick with this Earth ritual, even at this level.
Yeah.
The document lays out a very specific sequence of actions.
Okay.
It all starts with something called the Kabbalistic cross.
Okay, now I imagine some listeners might be like, wait, what is a Kabbalistic cross?
Right.
So I'll just quickly explain that it's rooted in a system called Kabbalah, which explores the connections between like the physical and the spiritual realms.
Okay.
You can almost think of it like a map of the universe where different points correspond to very specific energies.
I see.
And in this ritual, the Kabbalistic cross basically acts as this kind of tuning fork,
Interesting.
aligning you with those forces.
So you're essentially creating a sacred space within and around yourself.
Yeah.
By touching specific parts of your body.
Yeah. It says forehead, breast, shoulders, while reciting certain Hebrew words.
Oh, wow.
So it's very much about grounding yourself, connecting your physical body to this higher spiritual reality.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah, and then it gets really interesting because you start drawing pentagrams in the air.
Oh, wow.
Facing each cardinal direction.
Yep.
And the instructions are pretty specific.
Yeah.
It says you use your right index finger, a dagger, or a special wand.
Oh, so the tools are important in rituals like this.
Well, I imagine they act as like a focus for your intention.
Exactly. Almost like an extension of your will. And then the pentagram itself, of course, that five-pointed star.
Yeah.
Very powerful symbol.
Like, what does it represent?
Well, it represents the 5 elements: earth, air, fire, water, and spirit.
Okay.
All in balance, working together.
So it's all about achieving that balance.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you draw each pentagram, and then you charge it.
Okay.
And to do that, the document says that you need to vibrate the word AGLA.
Interesting. I've heard of that before, but I don't know what it means.
Yeah, it doesn't really explain it.
Right.
It just says it's a Hebrew acronym with mystical significance. So I guess we'll have to do a little side research on that
Or
one.
maybe it's meant to be one of those little mysteries tucked within a bigger mystery.
Exactly. Well,
So imagine you're standing there,
yeah.
drawing these shapes in the air,
Right.
imbuing them with power through this word. It's a really cool blend of physical action and focused intention.
Yes. And then it gets even more interesting because
What's next?
you call upon the archangels.
Okay, so we've established this energetic connection through the cross.
Right.
And now we're calling in some powerful allies, like amplify that connection.
Yeah. Get ready to meet the archangels.
All right, let's hear it.
So there's one associated with each element in each direction.
Okay.
So we have Raphael, the archangel of air in the east, representing water in the west.
Got it.
Michael, the fiery archangel in the south.
Okay.
And finally, Uriel, who is associated with earth in the north.
Okay. So you've got all 4 directions covered by these powerful beings.
And the descriptions are so vivid.
Oh, right.
I mean, it talks about Gabriel stepping from the sea like Venus.
Wow.
Michael clad in flaming red and green.
It's like you're supposed to actually create a mental picture.
Yes.
Almost conjuring these beings into the space.
Exactly.
Wow. That's powerful stuff.
Yeah. And then there's this phrase that really caught my eye.
Okay.
For about me flames the pentagram. And in the column shines the 6-rayed star. And it almost sounds like a declaration of protection.
Right. It's about reinforcing
Yeah.
that sacred space you've created.
Right.
Yeah. The pentagram acts as your shield.
Yeah.
And the 6-rayed star, which represents the macrocosm, symbolizes your link to the entire universe.
So it's anchoring you within that larger cosmic order.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a pretty profound statement.
Yeah. And then we get to this section called the Prayer of the Gnomes.
Okay.
Um,
Gnomes.
yeah, it's filled with this reverence for Earth,
Mm-hmm.
but it also hints at all these hidden forces within it.
Like what?
Well, there's mentions of the 7 metals,
Okay.
the 12 stones of the Holy City, and the axis of the lodestone.
That sounds very symbolic.
Yes, and I'm not entirely sure what all of that means.
Well, we're definitely seeing the Golden Dawn's fascination with symbolism here.
Yeah.
And with esoteric knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably spend a whole other deep dive just trying to unpack.
Absolutely. I mean, the 7 metals probably refer to the alchemical metals associated with the planets.
Okay, that makes sense.
The 12 stones of the Holy City could represent the 12 tribes of Israel.
Okay.
Or the zodiacal signs.
Wow.
And the axis of the lodestone points to the magnetic forces of the Earth.
Okay.
But, those are just some possible interpretations.
Right.
The Golden Dawn often layered their symbolism, leaving room for individual exploration and understanding.
So it's really up to us to kind of dig deeper and decode all these hidden meanings.
Exactly.
But even without, fully understanding all the specifics, the prayer itself has this beautiful kind of evocative language. It speaks of this invisible king who shaped the earth, the 7 lights, and the subterranean workers.
Interesting. So you can almost feel the sense of awe and wonder towards these hidden, mysterious forces beneath our feet.
Exactly.
It's very evocative.
Yes. And then, after all of that, you repeat the Kabbalistic cross.
Okay, so it's like you're sealing the ritual, returning to that point of balance and connection you established at the beginning?
Exactly, yeah. But what's the overall purpose of all this? What is this ritual actually supposed to achieve?
Well, according to the document,
Okay.
It can help ground you,
Okay.
particularly if you're feeling scattered or overwhelmed. It also aims to connect you more deeply with the element of earth.
Okay.
And potentially even facilitate communication with the Archangel Uriel.
Whoa, hold on. Communicating with an archangel.
Right.
That's
a pretty big claim.
Pretty intense.
Yeah.
And maybe a little risky.
Well, the document does mention that this ritual can be very potent, especially for beginners.
Oh.
It even suggests avoiding it before bed, as the energies invoked might be too strong and disrupt your sleep.
Wow.
So it's a reminder that this isn't just symbolic.
Right.
It's meant to be a real interaction with subtle, unseen forces.
So it's not just about feeling grounded or centered.
Right.
It's about potentially tapping into something much bigger than
Exactly.
Cool.
This ritual offers a glimpse into a worldview where humans actively sought to connect with and harness the energies of the natural world.
Yeah, which I think leads to a really fascinating question.
What's that?
Could rituals, even those drawn from these seemingly esoteric traditions, like this one, offer a pathway to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the natural world?
It's a great question.
And it's something we'll definitely explore further
Yeah.
as we continue this deep dive.
I'm excited to see where this goes. It's like a carefully choreographed dance of energy.
Yeah. And even for someone like me who doesn't, practice these kinds of traditions, it's really captivating. It really sparks the imagination. It makes you wonder what it would be like to actually...
to experience those energies.
Right, and to experience the effects of this ritual.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It all comes down to experience. You know, these rituals weren't just theoretical exercises for the Golden Dawn. They were meant to be put into practice, to be felt to be lived.
Yeah, which brings us back to those potential benefits and risks we talked about. Grounding, connecting with the elements.
Yeah.
Even communicating with the Archangel Uriel.
Right.
I mean, those are some pretty big claims.
They are, wouldn't you say? And it's important to approach those claims with a healthy dose of skepticism, as with any mystical tradition. But it's also important to acknowledge that, these practices have been passed down for generations.
For centuries.
Yeah, exactly. And that suggests there might be something to them, even if we don't fully understand it from a scientific perspective.
Right. It's like we're peeking into a different way of seeing the world.
Absolutely.
A world where the unseen is just as real as the seen.
And even if we don't necessarily subscribe to those beliefs, I think there's something valuable in exploring them.
Yes.
In trying to understand that human impulse to connect with something larger than ourselves.
And that impulse, I think, is still very much alive today.
Oh, absolutely.
Even if it takes on different forms.
Different forms for sure.
I mean, think about the growing popularity of mindfulness. The interest in practices like yoga and meditation,
Right.
the increasing number of people who are drawn to like nature-based spirituality.
Absolutely.
All of these are ways of seeking connection,
Mm-hmm.
meaning purpose, that go beyond the material world.
Exactly.
So in a way, this Golden Dawn ritual with its old-fashioned language and kind of complex symbolism might actually have something to teach us about our own search for meaning.
I think you're right.
In the 21st century.
It's a reminder that there are many paths to connecting with something bigger than ourselves.
Right. Something that gives us a sense of grounding and belonging.
Grounding especially, I think that's
the ground.
A key element here with this particular ritual.
Yeah, why do you say that?
Well, because it emphasizes that connection with the earth.
Okay.
And in many spiritual traditions, earth is seen as that element of grounding stability, nourishment.
It's the foundation.
It's the foundation for all life. And this ritual seems to be all about tapping into that foundational energy.
It makes you think about how much we've lost touch with that connection to the earth in our modern technology-driven lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we spend so much time indoors in front of screens in our heads. We forget the importance of connecting with the natural world.
With the rhythms of the earth.
Exactly. The cycles of day and night, the changing seasons.
Yeah. And this ritual is almost like a blueprint for reestablishing that connection.
I like that. The blueprint for remembering that we are part of nature. Yeah.
Separate from it.
And the Golden Dawn was known for its focus on practical application.
Oh, absolutely.
Of esoteric knowledge.
Very practical.
So even though this ritual comes from a tradition that might seem very different from our own, I think there are elements within it that we can adapt and apply.
Apply to our own lives, for sure.
To our own lives, yeah. And maybe that's one of the key takeaways here.
What's that?
You don't necessarily have to adopt the entire ritual.
Right.
But you can take inspiration from it.
Absolutely.
Find ways to incorporate those elements of grounding, connecting with nature, working with your intention.
Intention is key.
In your daily life.
In your daily life, exactly.
Yeah, and maybe that's something we can all benefit from.
I think so.
Regardless of our spiritual beliefs or background.
Regardless of our background,
It's about finding ways to reconnect with the earth.
Yes.
To draw strength and stability.
From that connection.
And to remember that we are all part of something much larger than ourselves.
So in a way, exploring this ritual isn't just about understanding a historical practice.
Right.
It's about rediscovering something essential
fact
within ourselves.
I think you've summed it up beautifully.
Oh, well, thank you.
It's a journey inward as much as it is a journey into the history and symbolism of the Golden Dawn. Exactly.
And speaking of journeys, I think we've covered a lot of ground in our exploration of this earth-invoking ritual. But before we wrap up this deep dive, there's one more element we need to discuss.
You're referring to the license to depart.
Yes.
That final piece of the ritual where you release the energies you've invoked and formally close the sacred space.
Exactly. It's a crucial part of the ritual.
It is.
That we haven't touched on yet.
And it highlights an important principle in magical practices. You don't simply call upon forces and leave them hanging.
Right.
You interact with them with respect.
Right.
You thank them for their presence. And then you release them back into their own realms.
So it's like being a good host.
Exactly.
Even in the realm of the unseen.
Even in the realm of the unseen.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. So what are the specifics of this license to depart?
Well,
does it involve any special words or gestures?
It does.
Okay.
And it actually echoes some of the elements we've already discussed.
All right.
First, you repeat the Kabbalistic cross, just as you did at the beginning of the ritual.
Right. So it's like coming full circle, returning to that point of balance before you step back into your everyday life.
Precisely. And then you make a sign called the sign of silence,
okay,
placing your right index finger over your lips.
Okay, interesting.
And this symbolizes the need for discretion, for keeping the experiences of the ritual sacred and personal.
It's interesting how the ritual emphasizes not just the energetic aspects, but also the ethical and behavioral aspects.
Ethical aspects, yes.
Of working with these forces.
Absolutely. It speaks to the level of respect and responsibility that the Golden Dawn associated with these practices.
It wasn't just about seeking power for personal gain.
No, it was about cultivating a deeper understanding of oneself and the universe.
I'm sensing a theme here.
What's that?
Balance.
Yes. Yeah.
Respect. Connection.
Connection, absolutely.
These seem to be the guiding principles.
Those are the key principles.
Woven throughout this entire ritual.
Woven throughout the entire ritual, yes.
And perhaps those are the most valuable lessons we can take away from this deep dive.
I agree.
Whether or not we ever attempt to perform this ritual ourselves, those principles can guide us.
They can guide us.
In our own journeys of self-discovery.
Self-discovery.
And connection with the natural world.
With the natural world, yeah.
Absolutely.
So we've really dug deep into this ritual.
Yeah, yeah.
All those intricacies, you know, the Kabbalistic, cross the archangels, all that symbolism.
All that symbolism, right?
But I think beyond all those fascinating details, the real value here is how this connects back to you.
Right, to the listener.
The listener, yeah.
Absolutely.
What struck you as particularly interesting or surprising?
Well, it's easy to get caught up in the exotic elements. You know?
Like drawing pentagrams.
Yeah, drawing pentagrams, invoking archangels.
Right.
But what really resonates with me is that emphasis on intention and connection.
Intention and connection.
Yeah, it's not just about going through the motions.
Right.
It's about actively engaging with energy.
Yeah.
Both within yourself and in the world around you.
And that actually reminds me of something you mentioned earlier.
Oh, what's that?
The concept of Earth.
Yeah.
As the source of grounding.
Right.
Stability.
Yeah, it's like this ritual is a way of tapping into that wellspring of energy.
Right, like symbolically.
Symbolically.
Reminding ourselves that we're not isolated individuals.
Right.
But part of this larger interconnected web of life.
Exactly. And that has relevance.
Right.
Even if you don't subscribe to the Golden Dawn's specific beliefs.
Right. I mean, think about how we intuitively seek that connection with Earth.
Right. Like spending time in nature.
Spending time in nature. Gardening.
Gardening.
Walking barefoot on the grass.
Barefoot.
All of these things are rituals too.
They are, in a sense.
Yeah. Even if we don't label them as such.
Exactly.
So maybe it's not about replicating this exact ritual.
But about finding our own ways to cultivate that sense of groundedness, that connection to something larger. Something larger than ourselves.
And it ties back to that concept of intention.
Right.
You know, the Golden Dawn practitioners used elaborate rituals to focus their will and direct energy.
But we can apply that same principle.
Yes.
In simpler ways.
Absolutely.
Through mindfulness.
Through mindfulness, meditation.
Even just setting clear intentions for our day.
Yeah, just choosing to approach our lives with that sense of purpose.
Right, with an awareness of the energy we're putting out into the world.
Exactly. And that brings us back to that license to depart. Right. You know, it's not just about invoking these energies, but also about releasing them.
Releasing them,
Respectfully.
Respectfully and acknowledging
that
reciprocal nature of the exchange.
It's like being a good guest.
In someone's home.
Yeah, you enter with awareness. You interact with intention. And you leave with gratitude, knowing that you've been part of something larger than yourself.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the most valuable lesson.
The most valuable lesson.
I can take away from this whole deep dive.
I think so.
It's not about dogma or specific beliefs. It's about a way of being in the world.
Yes, a way of being in the world. Yeah.
Grounded.
It's grounded.
Intentional.
Connected.
Connected. Those are the key takeaways.
Yeah. And as we wrap up this exploration, I want to encourage you, the listener, to consider how you can incorporate these principles into your own life.
How can you bring this into your everyday life?
Yeah. What rituals, simple ones,
even
do you create to connect with your own inner power and the energy of the earth?
Yeah.
It's a great question.
Yeah. It's something to ponder.
To ponder, yeah.
And as always, the answers are yours to discover.
It's your journey.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning.
Keep exploring.
And keep diving deep.